Patrick in Florida. Patrick, him, says he wants to know why pantheism is considered to be laughable. You're on Talk Heathen. You're on Bug Facts with Katy Montgomerie and Johnny P. and Poppy. Who says that pantheism is laughable?
It seems like, well, I've called in here and then the atheist experience, and well, to give an example, Matt Dillahunty said it's the equivalent of saying a kiss can of Coke was God or whatever. It's like redefine it, just define God into existence. It's so absurd. It's like that's the kind of reaction I've got from atheists.
Okay. Well, I think Katy and I can both agree that Matt Dillahunty can go suck an egg, as far as I'm concerned. But and Poppy's whispering something. Maybe I shouldn't speak for Poppy.
She's telling me that she doesn't even think that Matt knows a single crab fact.
I'm willing to bet he doesn't. I'll put money down on crab facts. Ask him about snakes, but crabs, no. So I don't care about what Matt thinks. Katy, what do you think about pantheism? What are your thoughts on pantheism?
So
do you think it's laughable?
when you say pantheism, do you mean that the universe and everything in it and all of existence is itself God, or do you mean just everything around us is God?
Yeah.
Just to be. Just to
I
clarify.
think in light of new information and new like theories on the universe, I think it plays into that, like with this panpsychism, that the universe itself may be conscious or considered conscious. We don't know what consciousness is exactly,
yeah.
or how it, that
I
kind
guess,
of thing. I think.
The reason I was asking, so I didn't mean to cut you off, just before we went off into some other related thing, was if someone says to me, I believe in a God, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. What's your evidence for that? Mm-hmm. Is usually my first question, but really my first question should be, can you tell me what your God is? Because if someone says, I believe in a God, and I think that this God is what creates lightning, and I think it also talks to me, and also I think it's currently making my sandwiches in the kitchen, I'd be like, well, we can just go in the kitchen and just see whether it's real or not.
I don't believe anything like that.
I'm not trying to straw man you. I'm just saying, hang on. But some people would say, would do a really general, but they're like, oh, well, it's whatever created the universe. And I could say, well, when someone says a God to me, I usually think of something like the Christian or the Muslim God, where it's this being with views and opinions and loves and hates, and it's like a person but stronger and better and all these other kinds of things. Whereas if you just say it's whatever created the universe, then maybe it's just a natural process. Maybe it's just part of the cycle of how the universe works. And if that's the case, I mean, I probably agree that the universe came from something, whatever that was. And if I just say, well, okay, I agree with that, then you can be like, oh, well, you believe in my God. And I'd be like, well, I guess, but really this has kind of just been a definition game, because you're just pointing at something and saying, that's my God. And like, that's cool. And so that with pantheism, if you say the universe is God, I could be like, well, I agree with you that the universe exists. So that's, I guess I agree that your God exists. But then that's kind of pointless unless you then start making other claims about it. And if you say something like you were just going into, the universe is conscious, or it created itself out of a will, it has a conscious will and it makes decisions and it loves and hates, right, then suddenly I don't agree anymore, because you're ascribing these things to the universe that I don't think we have evidence for. So I guess if someone said to me, I believe in pantheism because I think the universe is God and that's it, I might laugh and just say, well, I mean, that just kind of sounds like a definition game. It just kind of sounds like, if I'm like, God isn't real, and then you're like, yeah, well, actually, I believe this cup is God and this cup is real, therefore you're wrong. And I'm just like, well,
yeah.
So that's why. That's my position.
Yeah, Patrick, we had a caller last week, or I don't know if time exists anymore, but we had a caller who was defining God as the preconditions that have created the universe, and then sort of sneaking in, well, inadvertently or advertently trying to sneak in the qualities of a conscious, omnipresent God into that. You're saying that panpsychism is somehow evidence of a pantheistic God. I'm not exactly
Not
sure what you're
really,
saying, but
not really.
all right. Well, then lay it on us, because I'm kind of on Katie's track here. It just sounds like you're defining it so broadly that it's a meaningless statement. So correct us. Where are we wrong?
Yeah.
Well, I think it is a question of faith, of course, but I feel like, we may could get into this, I don't know, but I feel like the atheist has the same kind of leap of faith as any Christian, but, we could come back to that hopefully, but,
well,
right
you know
now,
what? You said something, and I hate
universe,
to, I'm going to go ahead and mute you because there is a delay. Oh, maybe I don't have to. All right. You said it comes down to faith. What is your definition of faith, and why does it come down to faith? Because, like, well, if
for
you're
an
going to
atheist,
believe
I believe it comes.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, for an atheist, it comes to faith and believing that there's no God, right, or no evidence of God. But what would be evidence of God? I can't say, but how would any human be able to? First off, it's guessing, right? We're guessing at, well, let's be honest. I'm guessing at what God is. So is every religion on the planet. They just act like it's a fact. But,
Yep.
I'm honest at least. It's a guess.
Okay.
And I like Einstein's guess over a lot of other people's facts. That might be an appeal to authority, but he was an authority in physics, and that is a big part of what the universe is.
Oh, so you're going down that
you know,
Einstein route. You're going down that Einstein route.
Not
Well,
just that. See, I came to this conclusion independent of any knowledge of Einstein. It's just when I found out what his faith was years later, and I was like, wow, I thought that idea was my own, but being that it was the idea of Einstein as well, that seems like it added weight to my claim.
Patrick, with all due respect, objection non-responsive. Can we go back to what my question was, which, and maybe I'm wrong. We don't have a transcript here, but my question is, what is your idea of faith? What is your definition of faith? If I didn't ask that, go ahead and dunk on me in the comments. But what is your definition of faith? Very specifically.
Faith to me, without Webster's or anything, is just like believing in an ideology or a belief or that, you can't confirm. Like you can't confirm atheism just like you can't confirm theism, right?
Wait.
So this is just
atheism is not a fact,
hang on.
right?
Patrick, just hang on,
Patrick,
just so we don't. I don't want to accidentally. I'm going to good faith your position here. If someone says to me, I know for a fact that God definitely doesn't exist, that is them making a really strong claim that I don't think they have evidence for. And if someone says, I have strong evidence, I'm definitely sure that God does exist, I would say, I'm not convinced that you have evidence for that claim. Yeah. Now, the second one is theism, and the first one is a type of atheism. But importantly, that isn't the only type of atheism, because I'm also an atheist, and I would say, well, I'm not convinced there is a God, but also I'm not convinced there isn't a God. I don't know for sure either way. So I'm saying what I have here is I don't have faith. So the reason I'm cutting you off here is because I think if you said to most atheists who spend time arguing on the internet, they will instantly jump down your throat on this, and they'll be like, no, atheism is a lack of belief. Like, you're wrong. There's no faith in atheism. And it can often turn into this like back and forth you get with Christian apologists, where they will claim that atheists do have faith, and people start telling each other what they believe they think, and it starts getting bad faith. And I don't think you're doing that. I think you're right to say anyone who is certain there isn't a God has some faith, unless they're about to call in and give me some evidence. But that isn't all atheists. Just to be clear.
Yeah.
But see, this is my beef with the atheists, is that they see, you all seem to claim that you have made no claim, but yet you do have a claim there.
What's my claim?
It's that you believe in an absent God that doesn't exist, and it shows all about that kind of thing.
I
don't believe in any God.
I, as an atheist, believe in an absent God that doesn't exist. Did I hear that right, Patrick?
You just don't have the brass to say it. I feel like you just don't have the brass to come out and say it. You're like, no, it's just no evidence. But
I've got brass cleaner. I don't know why I don't have any brass.
Would be.
Patrick,
why would you think that? Okay, go ahead.
Patrick, okay, listen.
You said you have a brass cleaner. The metaphor doesn't fit, first off.
I do have brass cleaner. I know I've got brass somewhere. Maybe I'll bring it on, bring out some flair next time. But Patrick, I'm not so arrogant as some theists out there who would say, I know there's a God. I don't know. I don't know. I cannot see through all the spectrum of light. I have not existed throughout all of time and space. I'm going to go ahead and mute you, Patrick. I'm going to go ahead and mute you, my friend, because you're talking over old Johnny P. And there's one thing he doesn't like, besides Nazis. It's people who talk over him. So, listen, Patrick, I don't recognize any reason to believe that a God exists. I don't recognize any reason to believe that unicorns exist, or the Loch Ness Monster exists, or Santa Claus exists, or Fry from Futurama exists in the real world. That doesn't mean that they don't exist. I just don't have a reason. I don't recognize a reason. So if there is an atheist statement, right, is I do not have in my mind a faith position that X, the God, exists. That is my assertion, okay, of an internal state in my brain. That's it, okay? Now, I'm not that arrogant that I would say that God does not exist, because I can't say that I have the hardware to even comprehend something that may exist in greater dimensions than myself. But I'm not going to build my life around what could be a possibility and could also be a non-possibility. I know that the people who claim that such a God exists are a real mixed bag. It doesn't seem to make them any better as far as my life is concerned, and as far as the life of people that I care about, or people that I believe deserve a fair shake. So I shall know them by their works. Well, some of their works are pretty shitty. So is there another reason why I should believe besides faith, which I define to be belief? Faith is belief. I believe because of faith. And then if you do some algebra, I believe because I believe. What is that response, Patrick? You're unmuted.
Well, I appreciate you, taking the time with me first off, but
No problem.
I just really consider atheism a faith, but suffice it to say that.
Did you hear what I said, Patrick? Did you hear what I said?
Patrick, come on.
What's the dogma? Okay, do I think atheism is a dogma? Okay, let's go ahead and say, what's the dogma? What is one of the tenets of atheism? Give it to me.
Oh, it has. Satanic atheism has many tenets, and a Bible, and a following, and a church.
Yeah, I'm not a Satanist though.
No. Nor I.
LaVeyan atheism. But
Yes, I
that
mean
is
there are types of
a
atheism for
group of
sure.
atheists that clearly
Hang on,
have a dogma.
yeah, there are some atheists that have, there are some
Yeah.
atheistic religions, and
Sure.
they have rule sets and dogmas and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But not all atheists do. They're a
What is
subset of atheists.
what is our dogma? Forget about you could ask us questions and we could maybe
Is
answer.
the
What is a
no
dogma that we
evidence
have?
of no science evidence of God dogma is what it is. It's
I don't recognize.
we
But
have
there's no evidence.
provide
The
evidence.
reason
What
why I
kind of
tell everyone
science
there's no
would
evidence.
be required to produce? What kind of science? How complicated do you think a God
I've got
level
this one.
science would be?
I've got this
Having
one.
known all that would be like the be all end all of science, right? The God science. So, how would we evidence a God? That's what I want to know.
I don't know, but if a God exists, I'm going to take one from old Matt Dillahunty here, who can, go do whatever he's doing.
That's what I was gonna say.
I don't know what would convince me scientifically of a God or whatever, satisfying me in some level, but a God that exists would know. And if that God cared about me believing, that God would have the power to make that happen. And thus far,
So
aside
you
from a
do
brief,
want a personal God.
I do.
Well, no, what
Sounds
he
like
wants
you
is
want to disbelieve a personal God. You're talking about Christianity. You seem like you referenced Christianity a few times here in this. Where
okay.
it's
If
like,
you're sorry, Patrick, that's not an
omnipotent.
attempt to strawman you. It's not an attempt to strawman you. We're just saying,
Yeah.
if someone says there's a God and it wants to prove that it's real to people,
Yeah.
it hasn't done that to me yet. It's failed. But if there's a God,
Yeah.
maybe you're calling
Well,
in
the
to say there's a
universe
God.
exists.
Hang on.
That's evidence.
All right, I'm
Yeah.
going to go ahead and mute
If
you
there's
there,
a God,
Patrick, because Katie's talking.
sorry. If there's a God that doesn't care whether we know it's real or not, then it's not going to try to provide evidence, and so it just won't. And that's fair enough. But then, I mean, these are kind of just separate things. You can say to us, well, what would convince you? And the answer is, I don't know. And if a God's not trying to convince me, or it doesn't have the power to, then we'll probably just never know. I don't think there's no contradiction here. The answer is I don't know. I don't know if there's a God or not. I don't know what the evidence I'd need to know if there was a God or not. But I know that I don't currently have enough evidence to say there is a God or there isn't a God.
Yeah, Patrick. To be fair, if let's say I were to have a vision of a God,
Johnny doesn't realize, but he's actually hallucinating right now.
Right. I who knows? I'm a brain in a vat, chemicals fizzing. But if I were to have a vision of a God, I'll be honest with you, Patrick. All right. If I had a vision of, I don't know, Jesus, some really, really white guy with blonde hair and long flowing beard and one of those nice robes they used to wear in the good old days. And this Jesus comes and says to me, come and take my hand, my son. I would think, oh no, I ate the wrong kind of brownie. Oh no, someone slipped some drugs into my yerba mate. Oh no, I'm having one of those frequently occurring hallucinations that do happen to people who are not struggling with mental health issues. Hallucinations are common. That would be my go-to thing. Now you might think, oh, that's just cynical. That's just because you haven't let God into your heart. Sure, but I would probably dwell on this experience for the rest of my days and investigate more into hallucinations and stuff. And maybe I would get checked out by a mental health professional to make sure that I'm not going to have a problematic hallucinations throughout my life, and it might get in the way of my driving or whatever. But is it possible for there to be an experience that I would have that wouldn't fall into that bucket of hallucination? Maybe very brilliant people through history have had that happen to them, and they were convinced. Now, I do not doubt that those brilliant people had an experience. I'm just have no reason to believe that I recognize that they had an authentic supernatural experience and not merely a brain hiccup or whatever you want to call hallucination. So is that, am I just, have I closed myself off to the possibility of the supernatural and Jesus and God and all that jazz? No, but it's a super ordinary claim, and it's going to take some extraordinary evidence for me to overcome it.
You should have said superordinary
Like Carl
evidence.
Sagan said.
Yeah,
So go
well,
on,
he
Patrick.
said it better. He said it better, but someone was saying, was it Matt? Let's just make this the Matt Dillahunty show today. All right. Somebody was saying that this extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that was the Carl Sagan quote. And someone pointed out, maybe it was Matt, maybe it was someone else. If it was smart, it was probably someone else. But that, no, it just requires proportionate amount of evidence, right? And so in order to overcome the lifelong experience that I've had of things just cause and effect, things exist in the material world, that it's going to require some evidence of something that is aside, along, above, below the material world, physics, before I will accept that it is a supernatural cause, event. So I just haven't had it.
Well, my
Patrick?
God isn't a supernatural God. It's a natural God. The universe is a natural God. So
Okay.
it's nothing supernatural about it.
So you should be able to use like science to prove it's real then,
Yeah.
right? If it's
You know,
natural,
I would
mean,
say, the pantheist is cool with the science test away. Let's see what the universe shows up. I'd say there's a lot unknown about the universe.
Sure.
yeah.
And consciousness
Definitely, most
seems to
things.
come into play. We don't know.
I guess my
Roger
question.
Penrose has OR theory on that, but that's a
Well, my question would be
trans
then,
theory, but they've gained evidence.
why do you believe that the universe is God if we don't have evidence of it yet, knowing that one day we might? Like,
Yeah.
why
Well,
do you believe
for
that?
me personally, I'll outline. Like, I believe, you want to look for God attributes if you're going to be searching for God, I guess. So, one God attribute, would say that God has been described as without beginning or end, as has the universe. The cyclical model of the universe, specifically the CCC of Roger Penrose, depicts a universe infinite with no true beginning or end. It's just big banging and big crunching.
But we don't
ad
have any evidence of
infinitum.
that.
Katie, what was that?
I mean,
Sure.
it's possible. We could come up with
I mean,
an infinite number of theories, but until
and
of
mathematical
hypotheses.
evidence, but
Patrick, these are all ideas
it's
that people have been.
theoretical.
These are all ideas that people have been bouncing around. They're trying them out for size to see if it matches
So
what
you
we
don't
see in the
believe
universe.
that. You don't believe
Patrick,
that.
give me a
But that
second.
would be
Give me a
one.
second. There's a delay, and I appreciate that it's hard sometimes. You want to jump in the middle of a conversation, and it's just kind of like when my dog starts pulling ahead of me, and I just walk him around in a circle, and then I bring him on back. Come on, let's start over, Vinny. Okay, Patrick. No offense, you're not a dog. You're a person. But we can all learn a little bit from our furry friends, right? These are all ideas that we're trying out. We don't have answers to it. We're trying them out. And the time to believe something is when there is sufficient evidence that that particular thing is demonstrable, is reliable, makes predictions that other things can't do. So just because some big brains out there are trying out different models of the universe does not mean that we just jump on it. We just say, okay, maybe we just say, gosh, well, I don't know. I don't know if the universe is cyclical in nature. I don't know if there's the necessity of an intelligent being. I don't know what happens before space-time exists. Maybe my brain can't comprehend it. Maybe you just sit back and wait and really appreciate the journey that the human race is on, of exploring the nature of the universe. But we've got people who are like, no, screw that. I've got an ancient book. Go ahead, Katie. Sorry.
If there's all these different ideas, and there's
religion
some
thing.
guy who says, there'll be some guy who says, oh well, possibly the universe
Yeah.
just cycles on forever, and then someone else is like, oh, maybe it's not going to do that, and here's another theory, and someone else is like, oh, and here's another theory. You
Yeah.
might think, oh well, this one would be really cool if it's right, or this one seems like it makes sense to me. There are loads of different theories, but people are coming up with new ones all the time. I should probably not say the word theory, given, but people come up with these hypotheses all the time, and there could be someone who comes up with one that you would be more convinced of, despite still having no evidence, in 100 years' time, and there could be someone who comes up with an even more convincing one than that in another 100 years' time, and you're just kind of seeing one that you like the sound of and saying, I believe that now. But all of these are equally true or false, in our understanding.
I'm more agnostic to it. To it. I believe it's a possibility, but see, I think that the atheists, you almost sound like you're claiming like it's not a possibility, but you are saying it's a possibility, but you're acting like it sounds like another Christian talking about evolution is just a theory, man. It's real science.
That's why I was trying to avoid the word theory.
Worldwide.
Patrick, let me go on the record. All right. I remain unconvinced of pantheism, but I'm not saying it's not real. I'm unconvinced of it. I'm going to withdraw. I'm going to withhold. I'm going to withhold my judgment. All right. I'm just going to live in this limbo. I'm going to be a fence sitter. I'm going to be lukewarm. I'm going to be one of those detestable creatures that Jesus didn't like because we wouldn't commit to some position without sufficient evidence. I'm just going to sit back and watch the big brain scientists discover new things. Katie, what are you going to do? What are you going to say?
But I am convinced of evolution. Because whether it's a theory or not, it's got something we got evidence for, and we have a lot of evidence for it. And we made a lot of predictions, and we have predicted correctly many times. So that's why I'm convinced of evolution.
You're talking about microevolution, obviously. You're not talking about macroevolution, right, Katie? Is what you're.
I'm talking about mega evolution. Evolution times 10 to the 6. That's what I'm talking about.
Oh. Oh no. Well, okay. We let Patrick go, not because we don't think that Patrick is great. Not that we don't think that Patrick.
I like Patrick.
Patrick, thank you for calling us. We let you go because we got to move on. And we don't have time for pleasantries, but in our heart of hearts, we do appreciate you calling, and I'm telling you that, so it's in my mouth of mouths as well.